I perceived the money tree emitting a sigh. Oh dear, I'm parched. This woman possesses a heart of stone. Not a drop of water has graced me in half a month. The voice was somewhat feeble, languid, reminiscent of an elderly man devoid of vigor. I paused, my hand clutching the cup of water suspended in midair, and abruptly turned my head towards the forlorn money tree languishing in the corner of the office. Who is speaking? In the office. It was merely myself and Sister Wang, who was vociferously berating a client while facing her computer screen, her words raining down like spittle, evidently too engrossed to engage in any ventriloquism with me. What are you staring at? Sister Wang, sensing my gaze, shot me an irritable glance. Lin Xiaoman, have you finished revising the proposal? Send it to my email. The client requires it this afternoon. Right away, right away. I recoiled slightly, hastily placing the cup down and typing furiously on the keyboard. Yet the voice returned. Water. I need water. My leaves are curling at the edges. If this continues, I'll be off to meet my great-grandmother. This time, it was unmistakably clear, emanating from the direction of the money tree. A chill crept down my spine, and my fingers stiffened. Is this it? Have I worked too late recently and succumbed to hallucinations? Indeed, the grueling 996 work schedule is hardly a life worth living. At long last, when the workday concluded, I bolted from the company building as though pursued by a specter, yearning only to return home and recline. Near the subway entrance, there stood a modest flower stall, adorned with commonplace pothos, succulents, and petite potted roses. The vendor was a wiry old man, vociferously hawking, selling cheap.
10 yuan per pot.
You can't go wrong with this deal. I instinctively cast a glance and prepared to hasten past. Suddenly, a cacophony erupted, resembling the squabbling of hundreds of ducks, crashing into my mind. Choose me. Choose me. I'm the most vibrant. Look at how green my leaves are.
Huffed.
Your roots are nearly rotting. What are you pretending for?
Buy me.
I'm the cheapest. Old man, please give me some water. My throat is parched. It's so cramped. You over there, don't crush my leaves. The sun is unbearably scorching today. I'm dying out here. I instinctively clasped my ears, staring in horror at the cluster of tightly packed potted plants. The voices. Are they emanating from them? The leaves trembled gently in the evening sun, as if silently narrating some tale. My legs weakened, nearly causing me to collapse on the spot. This is not a hallucination. Am I truly able to hear the plants speak? Miss, would you care to purchase some flowers? They're quite affordable. The elderly gentleman, noticing my pallid complexion, stood there motioning enthusiastically. I, in a daze, shook my head and drifted into the subway station, almost as if in a trance. The carriage was stifling and crowded, a cacophony of sweat and perfume mingling in the air, yet my mind was consumed by the chorus of grievances and sales pitches from the plants I had just encountered. It felt as though the world had suddenly become askew. Upon returning home to my dilapidated rental studio, just as I closed the door, a pitiful whimper emanated from the direction of the balcony. Whoa, I'm so thirsty. The last time I had water was last Wednesday. It was my pothos. Its long vines drooped, and the edges of its leaves were indeed slightly yellowed and curled. I stared at it, my heart racing. Is that you speaking? I ventured, my voice trembling slightly. It's me, Xiaoman. The pothos seemed to perk up, its leaves appearing more alert. Please give me some water. I feel like I'm turning into straw. That white porcelain pot down there has been complaining for ages, saying your aesthetic sense is lacking. It prefers the gold-edged pot at the neighbor's. Numbly, I walked to the balcony, picked up the watering can, filled it with water, and carefully drenched the soil of the pothose. Gurgle, gurgle. I'm alive again. The pothose sighed contentedly. Xiaoman, you're the best. But next time could you please not use such cold tap water? Let it sit for a bit. My roots are a bit delicate. I nearly dropped the watering can in shock. It was confirmed. I had inexplicably acquired an extraordinary ability that sounded eco-friendly and natural, but might very well drive me to madness. I could hear the innermost thoughts of all plants. In the days that followed, I felt like a startled bird. While walking, the street trees complained about exhaust fumes. In the park, the grass wailed in agony from being trampled. The fruit shop downstairs had bananas clamoring about ripening too quickly and facing disposal. Even the nearly wilted lucky bamboo in the office restroom sighed, reminiscing about its glorious days in a hydroponic vase. The world around me morphed into a colossal, unending symposium of plant grievances, overwhelming my senses and causing my head to throb. The sole silver lining seemed to be that the succulents I had neglected for years, Under my newfound attentive care, which merely involved following their demands for sunlight and watering, had miraculously plumped up and even produced a little offspring. My best friend, Su Wanwan, came over for a meal one weekend and, upon entering, exclaimed, "Wow, Lin Xiaoman, have you finally figured it out? This succulent is alive? It even has new sprouts? Did the sun rise in the west?" I slumped on the sofa, utterly drained. Yes, it told me it wanted to be on the south windowsill, basking in the sun for 2 hours each morning and to be thoroughly watered every 5 days, but the water must be pre-aerated.
Su Wanwan blinked in disbelief.
Reaching out to touch my forehead. "You're not feverish, are you? What nonsensical things are you saying?" I swatted her hand away, feeling despondent. "Wanwan, you might not believe me." I recounted my bizarre experiences in a torrent. Her expression shifted from amusement to concern, then to astonishment, finally settling on a gleeful disbelief. "Is this real? You can talk to plants?" Her eyes widened like saucers, and she grabbed my arm. "Quickly, ask my money tree why it's been shedding leaves. I've been watering and fertilizing it on schedule." She dragged me in front of the video camera, directing it at her flourishing money tree in the living room. Clearing my throat awkwardly, I hesitantly addressed the tree. Tree brother? My friend would like to know why you are losing your leaves." A moment of silence ensued before a leisurely, somewhat disgruntled voice replied, "Humph, your friend? That foolish woman? Yes, she waters me diligently, but she uses unfermented rice water. It burns my roots. And she always places me right under the air conditioning vent, with the cold wind blasting me. Can my old limbs withstand that? Losing leaves is a protest. Do you understand?" I relayed this verbatim. On the other end of the video call, Su Wanwan's jaw dropped in disbelief. "Rice water needs to ferment? Can't have air conditioning blowing directly on it?" She muttered to herself before suddenly slapping her thigh. "Damn, the online guides are misleading. Xiaoman, you are my savior." She was ecstatic, flailing her arms in excitement. "This ability is incredible. Gardening and growing vegetables will be unbeatable. From now on, I'll rely on you for remote guidance on my balcony garden. By the way, weren't you considering a job change? You should work at a flower shop. With your talent, you'd be unstoppable." A flicker of thought crossed my mind. Perhaps there was some merit in that? Fed up with the relentless grind of the internet company and the incessant plant noise, I decided to seek a change of scenery. A mere 2 days after submitting my resume, I received an interview invitation from a quaint flower shop named Fragrant Garden. The owner, Zhang Meifeng, in her 40s, sported trendy curls and expertly applied makeup, speaking at a rapid pace, like a little firecracker, while deftly trimming a large bouquet of roses. She scrutinized me from head to toe. "Lin Xiaoman? Never worked in a flower shop before?" "No, but I have a deep affection for plants," I replied truthfully, nervously clutching my clothing. "Affection means nothing. You must know how to care for them." Without lifting her head, she continued, "These delicate ancestors, too much or too little water, too strong or too weak light, temperature and humidity. All must be just right. Look at this phalaenopsis." She pointed to a blooming pot nearby. "Looks stunning, doesn't it? But if not cared for properly, it will perish in an instant." I instinctively glanced at the phalaenopsis. A gentle yet slightly proud female voice immediately chimed in. "Humph, indeed. I am the queen of flowers. Naturally beautiful. But Zhang is quite kind to me. She knows I dislike the cold and provided me with a heating pad in winter. However, that pesky hydrangea next door always steals my sunlight. It's utterly infuriating." I stifled a laugh, forcing myself to ignore the innocent-looking hydrangea. The 3-day probation period offered housing but not meals, with a monthly salary of 3,500 yuan. If I proved capable, I could stay on.
Zhang,
Brisk and to the point, snipped the last thorn from a rose, detailing the job. Menial tasks, changing water, cleaning, attending to customers, and running errands. I can do it. I nodded eagerly. The pay may have been modest, but it included accommodation. I could finally escape that cacophonous shared apartment. Moreover, surrounded by plants. Could it be paradise? Reality, however, proved otherwise. Paradise? It was more akin to a bustling marketplace of plant voices. As soon as I dropped off my luggage without even unpacking my small storage room, a barrage of sounds clamored for my attention. The lucky bamboo at the entrance argued, "You're crowding me. You extended first." The bamboo in the water bucket complained about the filthy water. "This water hasn't even been changed in 3 days. It reeks." The succulents on the shelf were gossiping. "The sun is delightful today, though the wind is a bit too strong." That new employee seems a bit dim-witted. In the corner, A nearly wilted asparagus fern weakly moaned. Help! I'm dying of thirst. Overwhelmed, I felt darkness encroach upon my vision, leaning against the wall for support. What's wrong? Not feeling well? Zhang entered, carrying a large bundle of eucalyptus leaves, eyeing me with suspicion. No, it's nothing. Just a bit of low blood sugar. I quickly composed myself, forcing a smile. Zhang, please let me know what I can do. Start by sweeping the floor, dusting, then change all the water in the buckets. Remember, the water needs to be aerated first. The lucky bamboo is delicate. Zhang instructed briskly. After changing the water, she glanced at the asparagus fern, which was on the brink of death. Let us treat it as if it were still alive, soak it thoroughly, and place it in a cool spot.
All right.
I felt a wave of relief wash over me and immediately grabbed the broom, attempting to drown out the mental din with physical labor. Yet, the plant's chatter was inescapable. As I swept near the wilting fern, its faint voice, laced with desperation, cried out, "Woo-woo, finally someone is paying attention to me. I need water that soaks through to the bottom. Let it flow out. Don't put me in the shade. Give me some indirect light, and I might survive." I paused momentarily, discreetly following its instructions to thoroughly water it, then repositioned it near the window where the light diffused brightly. "Thank you." My newly arrived small fortune bamboo, its voice seemed to regain a hint of vitality. I quietly exhaled in relief. As I changed the water for the lucky bamboo, they chattered excitedly. Yes, this is the right temperature. Comfortable. There's a rotten root down below. Please cut it off. The one with yellow leaves beside me is sick. Keep your distance. I don't want to catch anything. I could only steel myself, under the inquisitive gaze of Sister Zhang, and cautiously inspected the roots of each lucky bamboo, trimming away the decayed parts and isolating the one that appeared ill. "Oh, you have quite the skill," Sister Zhang remarked, raising an eyebrow as her tone softened. "Have you really never done this before? Well, perhaps I have a bit of talent?" I chuckled awkwardly. My first day of probation passed amidst this flurry of activity and the symphony in my mind. By the end of the day, I felt as though I had fought a battle, utterly exhausted in body and spirit. Yet when I beheld the pot of bamboo I had rescued, its leaves seemed to stand a little taller, an inexplicable sense of accomplishment surged within me. Perhaps this job could be sustained? My talent swiftly proved invaluable at the flower shop. On the third day, a stylishly dressed young girl stormed into the store, slamming a pot of yellowing, wilting gardenias onto the counter. "Boss, what's wrong with your store? I bought this gardenia here last week, followed your care instructions, and it's like this in just a few days. Did you sell me a diseased seedling? Refund me." Sister Zhang's expression changed instantly, and she hurriedly approached her with a smile. "Oh dear, miss. Please calm down. Our seedlings are definitely fine. Gardenias can be quite delicate. Perhaps you overwatered? Or is the ventilation poor? I followed your advice, watering when dry." The girl insisted. "I placed it on the balcony for ventilation. It must be your seedlings that are the problem. Refund me, or I'll file a complaint." Other customers turned to observe. Sister Zhang was sweating, clearly anxious. Gardenias were indeed finicky, and it was common for novices to inadvertently kill them, but this particular pot appeared to have root issues. I quickly moved closer, feigning an inspection of the gardenia, gently touching its leaves. A weak and aggrieved voice immediately entered my mind. "Woe is me. My pot is waterlogged, and my roots are rotting. That foolish woman waters me every day. I told her when I'm thirsty, but she never listens. And she placed me beside the air conditioning unit. The hot air is making me dizzy. Please save me." So it was overwatered and placed in the wrong location. I promptly looked up at the girl and said, "Miss, do you water it every day? And have you placed the pot beside the air conditioning unit?" The girl hesitated, her gaze flickering. "So what if I did? Don't gardenias love water and sunlight?" Gardenias prefer humidity, but despise water accumulation that rots their roots, and they are also sensitive to direct sunlight and hot air. I tried to explain in a calm tone that the hot air from the air conditioning unit is too warm, and since you water it every day, the soil remains soggy, suffocating the roots. You can see the yellowing leaves. They are classic symptoms of root rot. I pointed to the bottom of the pot. There's definitely still water at the bottom. If you don't believe me, turn it over and see. Skeptical, the girl tilted the pot, and indeed, a small puddle of murky water flowed out. Her face turned slightly embarrassed. "Well then, miss," Sister Zhang interjected quickly, "let us help you rescue it. We'll change the pot, trim the rotten roots, and give it some recuperation time. If it doesn't survive, We'll replace it with another of equal value. How does that sound? We'll also throw in some nutrient solution. Caring for plants takes time. There's no need to rush. The girl's pride was slightly bruised, yet seeing my confident explanation and the compelling evidence, she reluctantly mumbled, "All right, you can fix it. But if it dies, I'll come back for replacement." "Absolutely. Rest assured." Sister Zhang beamed as she swiftly passed the pot to me. "Xiaoman, it's in your hands." I cradled the pitiful gardenia in the back operation room, carefully repotting it according to its own specifications, cleaning the rotting roots, trimming, replacing it with fresh soil. It specifically requested loose, breathable nutrient soil, and then placing it in a well-ventilated area with bright, diffused light. "Thank you, Xiaoman." The gardenia's voice, though still weak, sounded markedly relieved. That foolish woman shouldn't sell her difficult-to-care-for flowers to me. I couldn't help but chuckle. After this incident, Sister Zhang's perception of me transformed entirely. "Well done, Xiaoman. You're quite the hidden talent." She clapped me on the shoulder with such force that I winced. "From now on, these finicky plants and those troublesome customers will be your responsibility. Do well, and I'll give you a raise." Thus, I smoothly transitioned to a permanent position, and my salary increased to 4,002.
Gradually,
I became adept at my work in the flower shop, although my mind still buzzed with a cacophony of thoughts. I began to learn to filter out the trivial plant voices, focusing only on those in need of assistance. Leveraging this unique ability, I became the star employee of the flower fragrance garden. I could swiftly identify which potted plants were thirsty, hungry, sunburned, or unwell, and I could efficiently diagnose customer dilemmas and provide precise solutions. Even when selecting inventory, I could discern the healthiest and most vibrant plants by listening to their conditions. Sister Zhang was overjoyed. The shop's loss rate plummeted, and our reputation soared. My salary rose steadily, augmented by commissions. Life seemed to be heading in a beautiful direction. Until that fateful evening after work. I cradled a small, adorable pot of succulent bear paw, an extra reward from Sister Zhang. As I walked cheerfully towards the apartment I rented, the building was somewhat old, located 2 streets away from the flower shop, but it was affordable. The streetlights cast a dim glow, and pedestrians were scarce. Just as I approached the entrance, a shadow suddenly emerged from the corner, blocking my path. I jumped in fright, clutching the succulent pot tightly. "Xiaoman," a familiar voice that sent chills down my spine, echoed. It was Chen Mo, my ex-boyfriend. It had been nearly a year since our tumultuous breakup. He was overly controlling and suspicious, which drove me to end things. He had relentlessly pursued me, leading me to block all his contact information and move away. I never expected him to find me here. He looked much haggard, unshaven, and his eyes were dark and brooding, fixed intensely on me. "So, you actually live here?" He stepped forward, exuding a repugnant mix of smoke and alcohol. "You've managed to hide from me rather well. Haven to you? Blocked my calls, deleted me from WeChat, and even moved away? Lin Xiaoman, you're quite ruthless." My heart raced, and I instinctively took a step back. "Chen Mo, we've broken up. Please don't seek me out again." "Broken up?" He scoffed, stepping closer. "Did I agree to that? I told you I did not consent. Come back with me." He reached out to grab my arm. I flinched back, nearly dropping the bear paw pot. Just then, from the scraggly holly bushes at my feet, a sharp alarm blared. "Be careful, Xiaoman. Watch out behind you on the left." A car. Almost simultaneously, I caught a glimpse of a dilapidated van, speeding towards us without its headlights on, clearly aimed at Chen Mo. He remained oblivious, his back turned to the alley, glaring at me with malice. In a split second, I had no time to think. "Watch out for the car," I screamed, not at Chen Mo, but using all my strength to lunge sideways into the greenery.
Bang!
A dull thud echoed, accompanied by the screeching of brakes and the sound of shattering glass. I crashed into the holly bushes, my arm scraped by several sharp branches, and the bear paw pot flew from my grasp, soil scattering everywhere.
Dazed,
I looked up to see the van just barely graze Chen Mo's back before crashing into the power pole at the roadside. The front of the vehicle was severely dented, and wisps of white smoke billowed from the hood. Chen Mo was thrown to the ground by the tremendous force and noise, landing in a most undignified manner, his face pale with fright, the effects of alcohol completely shaken off. The driver of the van, a tall, thin man wearing a baseball cap, cursed as he flung open the door and jumped out. He glanced at the damaged front of his vehicle, then shot a menacing glare at Chen Mo, who had just managed to rise from the ground, his eyes fierce enough to suggest he might devour him. "Damn it! Watch where you're going." The driver bellowed at Chinemo before hastily scrambling back into the vehicle. He reversed, yanked the steering wheel, and the tires screeched against the pavement as the van careened away from the scene, its departure disordered and frantic. The entire episode unfolded in mere seconds. Still trembling from the shock, Chinemo sat on the ground, casting anxious glances between me and the fleeing van, his complexion ashen, his lips quivering, utterly speechless. The wintergreen shrubbery, having narrowly escaped calamity, seemed to exclaim, "Oh dear, the trees are terrified." "Xiaoman, are you all right?" That vehicle was deliberate. I saw it. It was aimed directly at that man. My heart raced. My limbs felt weak as I struggled to rise. "Are you all right?" Chun Mo finally regained his voice, trembling with residual fear as he moved to assist me. "Don't touch me." I recoiled as if scalded, my voice hoarse, steeped in the dread and fury of a narrow escape. "Get away from me, Chinemo. Never show your face before me again." The horrific scene lingered too vividly in my mind. That van had clearly intended to run him down. Had it not been for the warning from the wintergreen, had I not reacted swiftly, the consequences would have been unimaginable. And he was the root of it all. Chun Mo was momentarily taken aback by my outburst. Upon witnessing the unmasked disdain and terror in my eyes, and glancing back towards the direction of the vanished van, he seemed to comprehend something. The color drained from his face as he cast a complex look in my direction, ultimately remaining silent. He staggered to his feet and, without a backward glance, hurried away, his demeanor frantic. I collapsed amidst the cold wintergreen, trembling uncontrollably, taking quite some time to regain my composure. The abrasions on my arm throbbed painfully. I turned my gaze towards the very shrub that had saved my life, my voice still shaky. "Thank you." The wintergreen rustled its leaves, infused with a hint of pride and lingering fear. No need to mention it. That man must have provoked someone he shouldn't have. "Xiaoman, keep your distance from him in the future." I managed a bitter smile. Of course, I wished to keep my distance. Struggling to my feet, I brushed off the dirt and grass from my clothes, my heart aching as I looked at my fallen bear paw succulent lying nearby. The flower pot lay shattered, soil strewn about, and the poor, fuzzy succulent lay pitifully in the muck, several of its thick leaves scratched. "Oh, it hurts so much. My home is gone." The bear paw whimpered softly. I'm so sorry." I quickly knelt down, carefully cradling it from the soil, inspecting its roots. Fortunately, they seemed largely unharmed. "Don't worry, I will find you a new home right away." I soothed it gently. As I surveyed my surroundings for something to temporarily house it, the door to the adjacent building creaked open. A tall figure emerged, holding a black garbage bag. The streetlight illuminated his sharply defined profile. He had a prominent nose and a well-defined jawline. Dressed simply in gray loungewear, his sleeves casually rolled to his elbows, his sturdy arms revealed. He exuded an air of quiet steadiness tinged with aloofness. He was my neighbor from across the hall, having moved in nearly a month ago. We had exchanged only nods in the hallway and never spoken a word, only knowing his surname was Qin. He appeared momentarily taken aback by the disarray below and my disheveled state, pausing as his gaze swept over the bent utility pole, the shards of glass scattered on the ground, and finally landing on me, particularly on my muddy, injured self, comically cradling a homeless succulent. "Do you need help?" His voice was low, tinged with a slight rasp, yet conveyed a sense of calm assurance. I felt a bit embarrassed and shook my head, and "No, it's fine, thank you." He nodded, not pressing further, and walked directly to the nearby trash bin to dispose of the garbage bag. As he turned back, his gaze fell again on the homeless succulent in my hands. "The pot is broken?" he inquired. "Yes, I accidentally fell," I mumbled, wishing to avoid recounting the harrowing moment. After a moment of contemplation, he said, "Please wait." With that, he retraced his steps back into the building. In less than 2 minutes, he returned, holding a clean white ceramic pot and a small package that appeared to contain soil specifically for succulents. "Here, this is for you," he offered, handing me the pot and soil new and unused. I was taken aback. "I can't accept this." "Take it," he insisted, his tone leaving no room for refusal. "I can see it needs it." Gazing into his calm eyes and then at the pitiful bare paw in my hands, I relented and accepted. "Thank you, truly. Thank you so much, Mr. Qin." I recalled the name on the doorplate. "You're welcome," he replied with a slight nod, his gaze drifting to the scratches on my arm. "You should take care of that wound." Yes, I'll attend to it as soon as I get back," I hurriedly affirmed. He said nothing more and turned to leave. The dim light of the hallway cast shadows as his tall figure soon vanished behind the door. cradling the new pot and soil. Along with the bare paw that had survived the ordeal, I stood at the foot of the stairs, the night breeze brushing past me. The sting of my arm reminding me of the pain, yet an inexplicable sense of calm washed over me. This reticent neighbor seemed to possess a commendable character. The new pot is lovely, the bare paw nudged against my palm, emitting a contented whisper. Back in my cramped rented room, I carefully repotted the bare paw and treated the shallow scratches on my arm with iodine. However, as I lay in bed, sleep eluded me. The terrified visage of Chinemo, the van hurtling towards him, the driver's ferocious gaze, and the sharp warning from the wintergreen replayed in my mind like a haunting film. A chill crept up from my feet. What sort of trouble had Chinemo gotten himself into? The other party had clearly intended to take his life, and I had almost been drawn into the fray. Moreover, what of my neighbor Chinyu? His timely appearance, and the fact that he had handed me a brand new, perfectly sized ceramic pot and specialized soil, it all seemed too fortuitous to be mere coincidence. I shook my head, forcing myself not to dwell on such thoughts. Perhaps he simply had a penchant for succulents and had some spare supplies on hand? In the days that followed, I became increasingly vigilant. I took care to avoid dimly lit alleys on my way to and from work, opting for the bustling thoroughfares instead. Each evening before entering my home, I would look around cautiously. At the flower shop, I found it hard to focus, even prompting Sister Zhang to notice my unease. "Xiaoman, what's wrong? You seem lost in thought. Are you too tired?" Sister Zhang offered me a cup of hot water. "How about taking a couple of days off to rest?" Cradling the warm cup, I felt its heat seep into my palms. After a moment's hesitation, I recounted the events of that fateful night, omitting the part about my ability to hear the plant's warnings, simply stating that I had been fortunate to escape unharmed. Sister Zhang gasped in horror. "Oh my goodness. How terrifying. In broad daylight, no less, someone would dare to try and run someone over? Did your ex-boyfriend borrow loan shark money or disturb someone's ancestors' graves?" She clutched her chest in fear. "As long as you're all right, that's what matters. Such scum should be avoided at all costs. If you find yourself working late, I'll drive you home. Safety first." Her concern warmed my heart. "Thank you, Sister Zhang. What's there to thank? You are my lucky charm," she exclaimed with a wave of her hand. "By the way, there's a big order tomorrow. We need to deliver an array of high-end plants and flowers to the VIP room at Yunding Club, and they specifically requested the best. Come with me. It'll be a great opportunity to learn and lend a hand." Yunding is the city's premier private club, its entrance reserved for society's elite. Such a significant order was crucial to Sister Zhang. The following afternoon, loaded with carefully selected plants and flowers in our small truck, I arrived at Yunding. The security was exceptionally strict, with thorough registration and checks before granting entry. The interior was extravagantly decorated, exuding an understated opulence that reeked of wealth. Sister Zhang navigated confidently as she engaged with a well-dressed man who bore the demeanor of a manager. "Manager Qin," she exclaimed, "in accordance with your request, I have procured the finest bird of paradise, monstera, fiddle-leaf fig, as well as these exquisite Ecuadorian roses and tulips, all air-freighted this morning, fresh as can be." She beamed as she introduced the plants. Manager Qin nodded with restrained approval, his discerning gaze sweeping over the greenery. They appear satisfactory. Let us move them to the Tingsong Pavilion on the 3rd floor, but do so with care." "Understood. Xiaoman, take this large pot." Sister Zhang directed me with authority. Together with another florist, I began to cautiously transport the heavy potted plants, each of considerable value. As I struggled to carry a half-human tall Erica palm, following Manager Qin into the expansive private room known as Tingsong Pavilion, a deep, unexpected voice interjected, "Lin Xiaoman?" I turned towards the sound. Standing before the vast floor-to-ceiling window was a tall man dressed in a dark shirt, holding a glass of wine as he turned around. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the glass, casting a golden outline around his sharply defined profile. It was Qin, my neighbor. What was he doing here? Moreover, the deference with which Manager Qin addressed him was startling. I was momentarily taken aback, clutching the cumbersome Erica palm, feeling somewhat flustered. "Mr. Qin?" I exclaimed in surprise. Qin-Yu's gaze settled on me before flicking to the pot I was cradling, his brow momentarily furrowing with a hint of concern. "You work here?"
Yes.
"I came with my boss to deliver flowers," I hurriedly replied, struggling to maintain my grip on the pot. "Mr. Qin, do you know this florist?" Manager Qin inquired with heightened respect. "Mr. Qin?" My heart sank. My neighbor was the esteemed Mr. Qin of Yunding. Ignoring Manager Qin's question, Chinyu stepped forward and extended his hand. Let me take that.
No, no.
I can manage. I instinctively protested, the pot feeling far too heavy. Hand it over, he stated flatly, yet with an undeniable authority. Reluctantly, I released my hold. He effortlessly took the Erica palm and placed it securely in a suitable corner of the room. His movements smooth and practiced, as if he frequently engaged in such tasks. Sister Zhang, too, recognized Chinyu, her mouth agape in surprise as she glanced between me and him, her eyes brimming with curiosity. Mr. Qin, what do you think of the arrangement? Manager Qin quickly interjected. Just place them as per the original design. Chinyu replied nonchalantly, his gaze lingering on me. Is your arm healed? Oh, yes, it's fine now. I quickly lifted my arm to indicate the healing scratches, which were nearly scabbed over. He nodded slightly, offering no further comment, then turned to gaze out the window, as though he had merely lent a helping hand. Yet, the atmosphere within the room had subtly shifted. Manager Qin regarded me with newfound curiosity and respect. Sister Zhang wore an expression that seemed to say, "You've been quite secretive, haven't you?" The other florists kept their silence, apprehensive. As we continued to transport and arrange the plants, Manager Qin's demeanor noticeably improved, even offering to help. Sister Zhang was invigorated, directing with newfound confidence. Meanwhile, my mind was in turmoil. Chinyu was the owner of Yunding? So young? Why would he reside in our dilapidated apartment building? Experiencing life? Or was there another motive? This notion struck me as absurd. What could an ordinary florist like me possibly offer that would entice someone of his stature? Once the arrangements were completed, Manager Qin inspected them with satisfaction and promptly signed the bill. Before departing, I couldn't resist glancing back. Chinyu remained at the window, turned away from us, his silhouette appearing somewhat solitary against the vast glass facade. The sunlight highlighted his broad shoulders and straight back. He seemed almost out of place amidst the opulence of the surroundings. What are you looking at, Xiaoman? Let's go. Sister Zhang nudged me with a wink. So, you're neighbors with the big boss? Spill the details. I chuckled, Sister Zhang, it's really nothing. We just live across the hall, and he happened to help me once. Helped you? Sister Zhang's eyes sparkled with intrigue. Did he rescue you? He merely handed me a flower pot, I replied, feeling exasperated. A flugepot. Her expression suggested she found my story amusing, then she lowered her voice conspiratorially, regardless. Yes, quite a catch. Hold on tight. Who knows, our shop might soar to success. I marveled at Sister Zhang's imagination. Back at the flower shop, life seemed to return to normalcy. Yet, whenever I encountered Chinyu in the hallway, our exchanges were limited to nods, imbued with an awkward tension. After that unsettling incident, Chun Mo indeed did not reappear. The wintergreen shrubs ceased their ominous warnings, which offered me some relief. One day, on my day off, I was at home watering my beloved plants on the balcony, while chatting with them. The pothose stretched its vines. Xiaoman, the sunlight is splendid today. May I inch a little closer to the window? Just a tad. The succulents basked lazily in the sun. This is delightful, but don't water us too much. The mint exuded a refreshing aroma. Snip some of my leaves for tea. It'll invigorate you. Suddenly, a faint, intermittent sound of painful groans drifted from the direction of the neighboring balcony. It hurts. The roots are rotting from too much water. The sound was soft, like a flickering candle in the wind, imbued with an air of despair. It was from Chinyu's balcony. My heart tightened. Was he tending to plants? Had he nearly killed them? Recalling how he had previously assisted me, albeit just with a flower pot, and Sister Zhang's remarks about the big catch, I hesitated but finally summoned the courage to knock on his door. After what felt like an eternity, he opened the door. Chinyu appeared as though he had just emerged from the shower, his hair still damp, clad in a loose black t-shirt that showcased his well-defined collarbone. Upon seeing me, a flicker of surprise crossed his features. Mr. Qin, I apologize for the intrusion, I said, feeling a bit awkward. I was just on my balcony and seemed to catch a whiff of something unpleasant, as if a plant had begun to rot. Do you have flowers on your balcony? Would you like me to take a look? I concocted a clumsy yet plausible excuse. Chinyu paused for a moment, his brow furrowing slightly, before he stepped aside to allow me entry.
Come in.
There's an orchid that isn't faring well. I followed him into his apartment. The layout mirrored mine. Yet the decor was starkly different, minimalistic, harsh, and angular, dominated by a monochrome palette, devoid of superfluous embellishments, exuding an air of aloof detachment, much like his own demeanor. On the balcony stood a solitary purple clay pot, within which was a slender-leaved orchid, its foliage wilted and yellowing, the soil surface damp and emanating a faint scent of decay. The agonized groans I had heard emanated from it. "Help me, my roots are rotting." He doesn't he understand? Watering me with cold water every day is killing me. My heart ached. This orchid was exquisite, and even in its deteriorating state, its former elegance was evident. Undoubtedly worth a significant sum. "It's a black orchid, a gift from a friend," Chinyu said, standing behind me, his voice somewhat hushed. "I've had it for several months, but it has never thrived. Lately, it's worsened." There was a rare hint of helplessness in his tone. I knelt down to inspect the leaves and soil closely, gently parting the top layer of soil to reveal a darkened, mushy stem near the roots. "Mr. Chin, have you been watering it a bit too frequently? And using tap water directly?" I inquired cautiously. Chin-yu remained silent for a moment, tacitly acknowledging my assumption. "It always seems so listless," I continued. "Orchids prefer to dry out rather than be overwatered, especially black orchids, which are quite particular about water quality and temperature. Tap water should be left to sit for a few days to dechlorinate, and the water temperature should ideally be close to room temperature, never cold." As I explained, I assured the orchids silently, "Don't worry, I'll help you." The orchid's faint groans responded, "Thank you." The situation was indeed dire. Its roots were likely beyond saving. I lifted my gaze towards Chin-yu, realizing that immediate action was imperative. Otherwise, it would be truly beyond salvation. "Do you possess any fresh planting materials? Something airy and well-draining, like bark or volcanic rock? And what of the fungicide?" Chin-yu looked at me, his eyes profound, seemingly surprised by my knowledge of orchids. He shook his head. "None." "Then, if you trust my judgment, may I take it home to tend to it? I have suitable materials at my disposal," I suggested, unwilling to watch this precious orchid perish. Without a moment's hesitation, Chin-yu nodded. "Thank you for your trouble." "Not at all." I quickly and cautiously cradled the heavy purple clay pot, the leaves of the black orchid drooping limply. "Be gentle, it hurts." The orchid's voice was as delicate as a whisper. "I understand, just bear with it," I reassured it in my heart. Upon returning home, I promptly commenced the procedure. Carefully extricating the black orchid from its damp, decayed planting medium, I discovered that the once pristine, plump roots had largely turned black and rotten, exuding a foul odor. "How unsightly," the orchid lamented weakly. "Fear not, we shall trim away the rotten roots," I comforted it while meticulously snipping away the decayed parts with sterilized scissors, leaving only the healthy white sections. I then soaked it in a diluted fungicide solution for disinfection. Next, I procured my stock of well-fermented pine bark, volcanic rock, and a touch of sphagnum moss, blending them into a loose, breathable planting medium. The cleaned black orchid was gently placed into a suitably sized, well-ventilated red clay pot. I reluctantly sacrificed my most aesthetically pleasing spare pot, securing it with the new planting medium. Finally, I positioned it in a well-ventilated spot with bright, diffused light, avoiding direct sunlight, and a suitable temperature. There it was temporarily safe. I sighed in relief, wiping the sweat from my brow. Now it was time for recuperation. Avoiding excessive watering, allowing the soil to dry before lightly moistening it with warm, sun-dried water. "Understood?" Although the orchid's voice remained frail, it was evidently more at ease. "Understood. Thank you." The new home is much more comfortable and breathable. Yet, gazing at its wilted yellow leaves, I remained apprehensive. The extent of root rot would determine its fate. Truly a matter of destiny. That evening, Chin-yu knocked on my door. He had changed into comfortable clothing, holding a delicate paper bag. "How is it?" he inquired directly, a hint of concern lacing his tone. "It's been dealt with. A significant portion of the rotten roots has been trimmed away. And it has new planting medium and a new pot." I stepped aside to let him in, gesturing towards the corner of the balcony where it rested. "Now we must wait for it to recover. Should I jot down some care instructions for you?" I retrieved paper and pen, meticulously writing down watering frequency, allowing to dry between waterings, water quality and temperature requirements, lighting conditions, ventilation needs, and the necessity of abstaining from fertilization for the time being. Chin-yu stood by quietly, observing as I wrote, occasionally glancing at the newly repositioned black orchid. "All right, I've noted it down." He accepted the paper, reading it attentively, then handed me the paper bag as a token of gratitude.
"Huh?
"No need for that." I waved my hands. It was a simple task. "Take it," he insisted, his tone still calm but resolute, "for the cost of the pot." It dawned on me that I had indeed borrowed his expensive purple clay pot. "Shall I wash it and return it to you?" I felt a twinge of embarrassment. "No need." This is for you. He pressed the bag into my hands. I opened it to find a stylish ceramic mug and a beautifully packaged set of specialized nutrient soil for succulents from a renowned brand. I was taken aback. Such a thoughtful gift? How did he know I had a penchant for succulents? Chinyu offered no explanation, simply stating, "The mug is new. You will find the soil useful." "Thank you, Mr. Chin." I accepted it, feeling a peculiar sensation within. This neighbor seemed to be more considerate than I had anticipated. "Just call me Chinyu," he suddenly said.
Huh.
"Oh, all right, Chinyu," I replied, somewhat awkwardly. He nodded, not elaborating further, his gaze drifting back to the orchid, lingering for a few seconds before he took his leave. After closing the door, I leaned against it, observing the mug and nutrient soil in my hands, then glancing at the ailing black orchid on the balcony, sensing that a subtle shift had occurred in my relationship with this enigmatic neighbor. The recovery of the black orchid was a protracted endeavor. In the days that followed, Chinyu seemed to diligently adhere to my care instructions. Occasionally encountering him in the hallway or on the balcony, he would inquire about the orchid, and I would provide honest updates. New roots appeared to be sprouting, albeit slowly. Yet they were no longer decaying. The leaves had ceased to yellow further. A few wilted ones might naturally fall off. "It seems a bit more spirited today." Perhaps it was merely my imagination. He listened intently each time, nodding in acknowledgement. The orchid's whispers grew more vibrant each day. New roots are itching to grow. Today, I basked in some warm, diffused sunlight. Chinyu watered me today, and the water temperature was just right. He didn't overdo it. Has he become a bit more astute? I couldn't help but chuckle. Almost 2 months later, the black orchid finally began to thrive once more. Although its leaves retained a hint of yellow, not as lush as during its prime, the new growth was a vibrant green, and the entire plant stood tall again, even hinting at the emergence of flower spikes. "I feel like I might bloom." The orchid's voice brimmed with joy and anticipation. I was genuinely thrilled for it, and eager to share this delightful news with Chinyu. That evening, upon hearing the sound of a door opening across the hall, I cradled the rejuvenated black orchid, now in my own red clay pot, and knocked on his door. Chinyu opened it, and upon seeing me with the pot, his eyes flickered with interest.
Chinyu, look.
I proudly lifted the pot higher, pointing to the visibly revitalized orchid, with a tender green flower spike emerging at its center. "It has survived. And it's growing a flower spike." The balcony lights illuminated his face, and I caught a glimpse of surprise dancing in his typically placid eyes, akin to ripples spreading across a still lake after a stone is cast. He extended his hand, his long fingers gently brushing against the tender green flower spike, handling it with almost reverent care. "It truly has come back to life," he murmured, his voice low and imbued with an unfamiliar warmth, like ice beginning to thaw. He looked up at me, his gaze focused and bright. "Thank you, Lin Xiaoman." The intensity of his gaze caused my heart to skip a beat, and I felt a flush creep across my cheeks as I hurriedly averted my eyes. "No need for thanks. It is merely a testament to its resilient spirit." He accepted the pot, carefully placing it on the coffee table as if it were a fragile treasure. "Would you like to come in for a moment?" he invited.
Huh. Oh, all right.
I was taken aback, but stepped inside. His apartment remained minimalist and austere. Yet the lively black orchid on the coffee table seemed to infuse the space with a rare softness and warmth. He poured me a glass of water,
using the same stylish mug he had gifted me.
We settled on the sofa, the pot positioned between us. The atmosphere was quiet, yet subtly charged. That night, Chinyu unexpectedly broke the silence. Downstairs, that car was intentional. My heart tightened. I hadn't anticipated him to broach the subject. I nodded. Yes, I noticed. Nothing else occurred afterward? No. He shook his head, his gaze steady upon me. Shanemo owed a debt he should not have incurred and attracted the ire of the wrong people. They sought to teach him a lesson. However, he paused. After that night, he took the initiative to rectify it. They won't trouble him for now. I exhaled in relief, the weight pressing upon my heart finally lifting. So that was the case. That's good. I lifted the cup to my lips, taking a sip to mask my discomfort. Did he seem to know everything? His gaze lingered on me, seemingly weighing his words, as if he possessed an uncanny ability to foresee certain events, like that car accident and this pot of orchids. My heart leaped into my throat. Had he discovered something? Did he harbor suspicions? My hand trembled slightly around the cup as I feigned calmness.
No.
I just happened to see the headlights that night, and the orchid was merely a guess based on experience. Chinyu remained silent, merely observing me with his penetrating gaze, as if his deep-set eyes could see through to my very soul. Just as I felt the weight of anxiety threatening to suffocate me, he suddenly chuckled softly. That faint smile instantly softened his otherwise stern features. Is that so? Your experience and intuition are indeed remarkable. I wondered, was this a pass or a failure? I have a friend, he shifted the topic, lightly brushing his fingers over the leaves of the black orchid. There's an ecological botanical garden on the outskirts of the city that has introduced many rare species. However, he has been troubled lately. Many delicate plants are not thriving. He has consulted numerous experts, but to little avail. Would you be interested in taking a look? Consider it a favor for me, and perhaps you could lend your expertise? An ecological botanical garden? Rare species? My eyes sparkled with excitement. For someone who could hear the voices of plants, this was an invitation akin to a heavenly blessing. Really? I can go? I forgot my nervousness, my tone brimming with delight. Of course, Chinyu replied, observing the brightness in my eyes, the corners of his mouth curving just a fraction deeper. This weekend, I will come to fetch you. On the weekend, Chinyu arrived promptly in a discreet black SUV, appearing at my doorstep. As the vehicle made its way beyond the city limits, heading towards the outskirts, he spoke little, only providing a brief introduction to the botanical garden. His friend, surnamed Zhou, was an avid plant collector, and the garden served both research and public viewing purposes. After more than an hour's drive, we entered a lush area where the air was noticeably fresher and more humid. The botanical garden was expansive, divided into various sections: the tropical rainforest pavilion, the desert plant house, the alpine plant area, and a meticulously managed rare orchid nursery. Mr. Zhou, a man in his 40s with sun-kissed skin and a hearty smile, had been waiting at the entrance. Upon seeing Qin Yu and me alight from the car, he approached us with enthusiasm. Old Qin, I've been eagerly awaiting your arrival, Mr. Zhou exclaimed, patting Qin Yu's shoulder with vigor, then turning to me with a beaming smile. You must be Master Shaolin. Old Qin has spoken of you in such glowing terms, claiming you possess extraordinary knowledge of plants. Please come in, come in. Feeling slightly embarrassed, I replied, hello, Mr. Zhou. You can just call me Xiao Man. Mr. Qin has overpraised me. I merely work in a flower shop and know a bit about plants. Modesty. Old Qin seldom praises anyone. Mr. Zhou chuckled heartily, leading us inside. Come, come. Let us first take a look at my prized possessions. They've been causing me great distress. He guided us straight to a climate-controlled orchid cultivation room, perfectly simulating their natural environment. Upon entering, I was taken aback by the stunning array of orchids, each vying for attention in a breathtaking display. Yet, Mr. Zhou led us to the back of the room, to a solitary glass enclosure containing 3 pots of orchids. Each pot exhibited a unique form, with leaves resembling either jade or drifting clouds, even without blooms. They exuded an extraordinary aura. However, their condition was evidently poor. One pot had leaves that were yellowing and curling at the tips, another's leaves drooped lifelessly, and the last bore unsightly brown spots on its foliage. Mr. Zhou gazed at them, wringing his hands in distress. Master Shaolin, take a look. These 3 pots are my lifeblood. I spent a fortune and leveraged countless connections to acquire these native species. This one is a variant of the ghost orchid. This one is the legendary Bai Luo Xianzong, and this one is the recently introduced Xing Qinlei. But ever since they arrived here, they've been lackluster. I've consulted several experts, and they've offered every excuse imaginable: light, humidity, temperature, fertilizer methods, but none have yielded results. If this continues, I fear for them, he sighed heavily. His brow furrowed. At that moment, my mind was flooded with 3 distinct voices, each filled with anguish and complaint, as soon as I stepped into the enclosure. The yellowing, curling ghost orchid variant, its voice sharp and anxious. Hot. It's so hot. That wretched light above. It's south too close. It's scorching my throat. And the puddle beneath me.
I'm suffocating.
I can barely breathe. The wilted Bai Luo Xianzong, its voice faint and powerless, like a sickly beauty cold. So cold. My feet are icy, with no warmth. The heights are unbearable. I want to come down the spotted Xing Qinlei, its voice laced with grievance and fury itchy. So itchy. There's something gnawing at me. Invisible little pests. The pesticide you sprayed smells horrid, and it can't kill them. It drives me mad. The influx of information was overwhelming. I steadied myself and approached the pot of the yellowing ghost orchid variant, glancing up at the overhead grow light before crouching to test the moisture at the bottom of the pot. Mr. Zhou, I indicated toward the high-wattage grow light. ISNT this light too close to this pot? And ISNT it on for a bit too long? Also, the excess water in the tray, has it never been drained? Mr. Zhou paused for a moment, bewildered. The light? Experts said it requires strong diffuse light. This lamp simulates dappled sunlight in the forest. The excess water?
Oh,
That S to maintain humidity. I added that on purpose strong diffuse light does not equate to high temperature roasting, I clarified. This lamp's wattage is excessive, and its proximity combined with prolonged exposure has scorched the leaf tips. Additionally, the standing water at the bottom, while the surface media appears dry, has kept the roots submerged, suffocating them. That's why they appear yellowed and lack vitality. You should try moving the light further away or substituting it with a lower wattage bulb, and reduce the duration of exposure. Drain the standing water immediately, and in the future, allow the water that drains from the pot to evaporate before returning it to the tray. I then approached the Bai Luo Xianzong. For this pot, did you place it at a high elevation? And does the media feel a bit cool to the touch? Mr. Zhou nodded. Yes. Its native environment is in high altitude, shady areas. I feared it would get too warm, so I placed it on the highest shelf, where the ventilation is best. The media consists of cool mountain soil mixed with gravel. Good ventilation, yes, but at a height, the air moves quickly, and the temperature is lower, I noted. Its roots require a bit of warmth from the ground. Being in a consistently cool state diminishes its absorption capacity, hence the limp leaves. You should lower it by 1 or 2 tiers to avoid direct cold drafts.
additionally,
You can mix in a bit of well-composted bark or leaf mold to introduce some gentle organic matter and insulation. Finally, I examined the Xing Qinlei. The spots on the leaves indicate pest damage. It's not fungal, it's likely tiny mites or thrips, which are difficult to see with the naked eye. The broad-spectrum pesticide you used is ineffective against them and may even irritate the leaves. You need to use a targeted insecticide, like imidacloprid or abamectin, diluted according to the instructions. Be sure to spray both the upper and lower sides of the leaves and repeat every few days, ensuring proper ventilation. I delivered the information in one breath, and the entire cultivation room fell into a profound silence, the sound of a pin dropping palpable. Mr. Zhou stared at me, awestruck, his mouth agape as he struggled to find his words. Qin Yu stood beside me, hands tucked into his pockets, gazing at me with an inscrutable expression, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Remarkable, Mr. Zhou suddenly exclaimed, slapping his thigh with fervor, his face flushed with excitement. Master Shaolin, you're simply extraordinary. Everything you said was spot on. The lamp's position, the excess water, the height, the media temperature, and those pesky pests. None of the experts I previously consulted mentioned any of this. They were all spouting platitudes. Old Qin, where did you find such a treasure? His enthusiasm was palpable as he grasped my hand, shaking it vigorously. Master Shaolin. No, Shaoman. From now on, you're my dear sister. You shall be the technical advisor for this botanical garden. We can negotiate your compensation, but you must help me. I found myself somewhat overwhelmed by his fervor. Casting a pleading glance towards Qin Yu, he stepped forward, discreetly liberating my hand from the clutches of Boss Zhou, his voice calm. Old Zhou, do not frighten her. Let us first try what Xiaoman suggested and see how it goes. Yes. Let's try it immediately. Boss Zhou promptly summoned his assistant, bustling about according to my instructions, relocating lamps, pouring water, moving flowers, and preparing insecticides, all in a flurry of activity. The 3 precious pots of orchids calmed down, as if they were all eagerly anticipating a new transformation. Bai Luo Xianzong timidly remarked, it would be warmer if you lowered it a bit. Xing Qinlei added, hurry and spray the medicine. It itches terribly. The ghost orchid variant chimed in, it's more comfortable with the light further away. It allows for better ventilation. Watching them, I couldn't help but smile. After returning from the botanical garden, I became Boss Zhou's exclusive consultant, visiting weekly to resolve various perplexities. Boss Zhou was generous with his consultant fees, and my little treasury quickly swelled. My work at the flower shop did not suffer either. Sister Zhang, aware of my newfound income, not only had no objections, but took pride in boasting about her store's plant savant. My relationship with Qin Yu also seemed to quietly draw closer after that pot of black orchid and our excursion to the botanical garden. He was no longer merely the reticent, enigmatic neighbor. Occasionally, he would drive me home, though his route always had a peculiar charm. Sometimes, after creating delectable pastries, under the guidance of the plants, my culinary skills improved remarkably. I would deliver a portion to him. In return, he would bring me local plant seeds or interesting little potted plants upon returning from his business trips. We would chat through the window while watering our respective plants on the balcony. The conversation gradually extended beyond flora to trivial matters of daily life. even occasionally indulging in harmless banter. This tranquil and fulfilling existence nearly allowed me to forget the burdens brought by my peculiar ability until that fateful weekend afternoon. I had arranged to meet Su Wanwan for a visit to the newly opened plant market. The market, located in a repurposed old factory in the city center, was bustling with people, alive with a vibrant atmosphere. An array of plants, pots, gardening tools, and handcrafted ornaments dazzled the eye. Wanwan and I felt like mice in a rice bin, excitedly exploring every nook and cranny. Wanwan had her eye on a uniquely shaped air plant, haggling with the vendor, while I was captivated by a begonia at a nearby stall, its leaves a deep blue-purple adorned with silver speckles. It was so extraordinary, as if a piece of the night sky had been condensed onto its foliage. I crouched down to examine it closely. Just as my fingers were about to brush against that exquisite leaf, an excruciating, piercing scream, filled with boundless agony and despair, erupted in my mind without warning.
Ah!
The sound was so intense, as if a searing steel needle had plunged mercilessly into my temple. The pain, an indescribable torment, engulfed my entire head in an instant. My vision abruptly darkened, a ringing filled my ears, and my body collapsed uncontrollably backward.
Xiaoman!
Wanwan's startled cry seemed to come from a great distance. I hit the ground heavily, the back of my head striking the unforgiving concrete, sending a dull ache coursing through me. Yet, compared to the tearing pain deep within my mind, this impact was trivial. The agony was unbearable, and that harrowing scream still echoed, imbued with a frantic desperation and plea. It was that begonia. What was happening to it?
Xiaoman!
Xiao Man, what is wrong? Wanwan rushed to my side, her voice trembling with fear as she shook my shoulders. Onlookers gathered around, murmuring in confusion. What happened? Did she suddenly faint? Is it heatstroke? Call 120. I curled on the ground, clutching my head with both hands, my nails nearly digging into my scalp. The plant's piercing wail felt like a drill, swirling chaotically in my brain, inducing waves of intense nausea and dizziness. Sweat drenched my back in an instant. Wanwan, take me home. I gritted my teeth, forcing out a few words, each syllable pulling at my agonizing head. Wanwan was horrified by my pale complexion and anguished demeanor, tears nearly spilling from her eyes. In a flurry, she helped me sit up and called over a kind young man nearby. Together, they half-carried, half-supported me out of the crowded market and hailed a taxi. Driver, to the nearest hospital. Quickly, Wanwan pleaded, her voice tinged with panic. No, don't go to the hospital. I weakly grasped her arm, my head splitting, my consciousness beginning to blur. Take me home. What good is a hospital? Can a doctor cure my hallucinations? Can they silence the plant suffering?
But you. Home.
I nearly shouted, only to be engulfed by another wave of excruciating pain, groaning in agony. Seeing my resolute attitude and acute distress, Wanwan reluctantly relayed my address to the driver. Throughout the ride, the begonia's desperate, heart-wrenching scream reverberated in my mind, fluctuating in intensity, accompanied by unrelenting waves of nausea and dizziness. What had it endured? Why did it emit such a terrifying sound? Upon arriving at the apartment building, Wanwan and the driver assisted me upstairs. I was almost dragged through the door, my hands trembling too much to steady the key. Xiao Man, are you really all right? Shouldn't we at least check the hospital? Wanwan helped me onto the sofa, her anxiety palpable. You were so frightening just now. Your face was as pale as paper. Water. Please, water. I weakly murmured, my throat parched and burning. Wanwan hurried to fetch a glass. Just then, a knock echoed through the room. Wanwan dashed to the door. It was Qin Yu. He must have heard the commotion in the hallway. Mr. Qin, Wanwan exclaimed, relief flooding her voice. Please, you must see Xiao Man. She collapsed at the market. She has a terrible headache and refuses to go to the hospital. Qin Yu strode in, and upon seeing me curled up on the sofa, pale and drenched in cold sweat, clutching my head in torment, his expression instantly darkened, his brow furrowed. He crouched down, placing a large hand on my forehead to check my temperature. What is going on? His palm was dry and cool, offering a faint sense of comfort. My head hurts terribly. I managed to rasp, my voice hoarse. That pot of flowers, it's screaming, in such pain. Qin Yu's gaze sharpened. Wanwan approached with the water cup, her expression bewildered. A flower? What flower? Xiao Man, are you talking nonsense? Qin Yu took the cup from her and held it to my lips. Drink slowly. I managed a few sips. The icy water slid down my throat, providing a slight respite from the heat, yet the searing pain and that dreadful scream in my mind showed no sign of abating. Which flower? Qin Yu's voice was low and steady, imbued with an unusual soothing authority. The begonia with blue leaves and silver spots from the market, I stammered. It's crying out in pain. Qin Yu rose, addressing Wanwan. Could you please keep an eye on her? I will be right back. His tone brooked no argument. Though Wanwan was perplexed, she was intimidated by Qin Yu's presence and instinctively nodded. He cast a deep, inscrutable glance at me before striding out with purpose. Once he left, Wanwan gently wiped the sweat from my brow, her concern evident. Xiao man, what on earth is wrong? Please don't frighten me. Have you been too exhausted lately? Is it related to your ability to hear the plant speak? She lowered her voice. She was the only one privy to my secret. I closed my eyes, weakly nodding, as the sharp, anguished wails continued to torment my nerves. Time dragged on, each second an agonizing ordeal. After what felt like an eternity, just as I was about to succumb to the relentless suffering, a knock resonated once more. Wanwan hurried to the door. Qin Yu had returned, and in his hands, he cradled that agonizing begonia with its deep blue-purple leaves. He entered the room, placing the flower pot at a considerable distance from my dining table. Strangely enough, once that pot of begonia was set upon the table, its piercing cries diminished significantly upon being distanced from me. Although the agonizing murmurs persisted, they no longer possessed the sharpness capable of tearing at my nerves. The excruciating pain in my mind also abruptly lessened, while it remained a dull ache. It had become bearable. I exhaled deeply, collapsing onto the sofa in a state of exhaustion, sweat dampening my hair and adhering it to my forehead. Wanwan glanced at the pot, then at me, and finally at Qin Yu, utterly bewildered. Qin Yu approached my side, crouched down, and offered me a clean tissue to wipe away the sweat, his voice steady. How do you feel? Much better, I replied hoarsely, utterly fatigued. Its distance had quelled its volume. Qin Yu nodded, refraining from questioning further, simply stating, I inquired with the vendor. This flower is a recent arrival, its origins rather unclear. I noticed its condition was quite poor, so I purchased it. He stood up, moving to the dining table to scrutinize the pot of begonia. Although its leaves were vibrant in hue, the edges had begun to scorch and curl, with hints of blackness at the petioles, exuding an aura of decay. Its roots have been damaged by the chemicals, I weakly remarked, the begonia's intermittent pained groans echoing in my mind, confirming this. Was it a potent rooting agent? Or perhaps an insecticide? The root system is in agony, burning everywhere. Qin Yu's gaze sharpened. Cautiously, he used his finger to part the soil, revealing the roots. Indeed, what should have been healthy white roots now appeared an abnormal dark brown, many having rotted and exuding a noxious blend of chemical and decay. Oh heavens, Wanwan gasped, covering her mouth. The roots are rotten. Can it even survive? It hurts so much. It would be a relief if I were to perish. The begonia's feeble lament continued. I gazed at it, feeling the unending torment it conveyed, a heaviness settling in my heart. I looked at Qin Yu, a hint of pleading in my eyes. Please help it. It suffers terribly. Qin Yu regarded my pale face, and the compassion reflected in my eyes. Remaining silent for a few seconds before decisively removing his jacket and rolling up his shirt sleeves. What must be done? He asked. The following hours transformed into an urgent rescue operation. With Qin Yu's assistance, we relocated the ailing begonia to my small balcony work area. I suppressed the lingering headache and discomfort, directing Qin Yu in the procedure. He carefully extracted the begonia from its toxic soil. I rinsed its chemically burned, blackened roots with clean water repeatedly. The decayed portions were meticulously trimmed away. Then, the roots were soaked in copious amounts of water to dilute the residual chemicals as much as possible. Finally, they were temporarily repotted in the cleanest, sterile coarse sand, placed in a cool, ventilated area, shielded from direct sunlight and fertilizer stimuli. Throughout the entire process, the begonia's pained groans lingered in my mind. Yet compared to its initial soul-rending wails, they had softened into a tolerable background noise. Once it was settled and watered with clean water, the painful moans gradually subsided into a faint, exhausted gasp. Thank you, came a voice as delicate as a whisper. My taut nerves finally relaxed, and darkness enveloped my vision again. My legs weakened, nearly causing me to collapse. A pair of strong arms caught me just in time. It was Qin Yu. His arms were steady, radiating warmth. Go rest, he commanded, his tone leaving no room for argument, tinged with a barely perceptible tension. Wanwan hurried over to support me on the opposite side. The two of them effectively assisted me back to the living room sofa. Wanwan poured me a glass of warm water and retrieved painkillers for me to take. Qin Yu washed his hands in the bathroom, returning with a still grave expression. Settling into the single sofa opposite me, his gaze heavy upon me. Has this situation ever occurred before? He inquired, cutting straight to the core. I cradled the water cup, feeling the medication's effects gradually take hold, my headache easing while fatigue surged like a tidal wave. I shook my head, my voice barely above a whisper. This is the first time it has been this severe. Previously, I merely found the noise bothersome or felt distressed upon hearing them in distress, but I had never directly experienced such intense pain. Recalling that soul-rending agony still sent a shiver of dread through me. Qin Yu's brow furrowed deeper, his gaze sharp as a hawk's. You can feel their pain? In sync? I nodded, then shook my head. Not all, but those in extreme agony or on the brink of death. Their voices are particularly strong and directly affect me. I hesitated, then added, it's akin to a mental assault. Wanwan gasped in shock, concern etched upon her face. Xiaoman, that's far too dangerous. Qin Yu remained silent for an extended moment, the only sound in the living room being my weary breaths. This ability, he began slowly, his tone unprecedentedly serious, is a far greater burden on you than I had imagined, especially when confronting lives that have been severely harmed. I offered a wry smile. Indeed. I once thought it merely a golden touch. Now I realize that with greater power comes greater headache. I attempted to make a jest, but my voice was parched. Qin Yu did not smile. He continued to regard me, his eyes deep as the ocean. You must learn to control it. Or rather, learn to shield yourself. Otherwise, similar incidents will recur. Next time, you may not be so fortunate. Control? Shield? I gazed at him in confusion. This ability felt like an extra ear suddenly sprouting. I had no idea how to turn it off. How could I control it? I know someone. Qin Yu chose his words carefully. Who conducts research in neurocognition and certain special perceptual fields. Perhaps he can offer you some advice. Of course, only if you're willing. Special perceptual fields? A flicker of intrigue sparked within me. Qin Yu indeed harbored knowledge. The person he knew likely researched something beyond conventional science. Wanwan immediately grew anxious. Mr. Qin, is that reliable? He won't treat Xiaoman like a specimen, right? Qin Yu glanced at her, his tone assured. Rest assured, he is very reliable and values privacy. He will only provide potential strategies for coping without imposing anything you are unwilling to do. I looked down at the rippling surface of the water in my cup, my thoughts in disarray. Today's events had sounded a clarion call. This ability, if ungoverned, could become a lethal burden, even as it offered convenience. I wished to never experience such soul-rending pain again. All right. I lifted my gaze to Qin Yu. I wished to meet him. A few days later, both my body and spirit had nearly recovered. Qin Yu drove me to a serene research institute on the outskirts of the city. It was not the cold, sterile laboratory I had envisioned, but rather resembled a sanatorium nestled within the woods. We were received by a man who appeared to be in his 50s. With graying hair and gold-rimmed glasses, exuding a gentle and cultured demeanor, Qin Yu referred to him as Professor Gu. Professor Gu's office was spacious and bright, filled with greenery and brimming with life. He poured me a cup of herbal tea, his smile warm and devoid of any scrutinizing glances, creating a relaxing atmosphere. Qin Yu has briefly informed me of your situation, Xiaoman. Professor Gu's voice was calm and soothing, distinctly unique and engaging. Could you elaborate on what it feels like when you hear or perceive plants? For instance, are they clear words or vague emotions? Or perhaps some kind of imagery? Under his guidance, I detailed my ability. Most often, I heard clear words, akin to distinct personalities conversing. In the face of intense suffering, it was synchronous, an unbearable sensation of pain, and rarely, I would receive fragmented, indistinct images such as sunlight, rain, or harm from the plant's memories. Professor Gu listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes. Based on your description and this intense experience of negative feedback, he adjusted his glasses and expressed a growing inclination to believe that this phenomenon transcends conventional auditory perception, manifesting instead as a highly developed ability to empathize with the bioelectrical signals of plants or some unknown pheromones. Your brain translates these signals into a language and sensations you can comprehend. Empathy? I inquired, somewhat perplexed. It can be understood as a profound, unconventional capacity for empathy, but directed towards plants, Professor Gu elucidated. This ability in itself is neutral. Your capacity to perceive their needs, suffering, and even fragmented memories indicates a remarkably close and sensitive connection with the botanical realm. However, he shifted his tone to a more serious note. the mechanisms your brain employs to process these external signals, or, if you will, the firewall, seem insufficiently refined. When confronted with extremely intense, negative signals, such as the acute suffering of that dying begonia, your brain struggles to effectively isolate the shock, resulting in severe physiological pain and mental discomfort. It is akin to a radio with exceptional reception capabilities but lacking volume control and noise filtering. When it encounters an overwhelming noise signal, it suffers damage. This metaphor was strikingly vivid. What should I do? I asked eagerly. How can I install a firewall or a tuning knob? Professor Gu chuckled. A very astute question. We can explore several avenues. He proposed a few suggestions. 1. Meditation and focus training. Through meditation, one can learn to concentrate on oneself, enhancing control over internal states, and consciously withdraw or reduce the intensity of reception when perceiving strong negative signals. This requires prolonged practice.
2.
Establishing psychological barriers. Visualization envisioning a gentle curtain or barrier of light surrounding oneself that permits soft information to pass while blocking or diminishing excessively strong negative impacts. This also necessitates practice and the reinforcement of belief. 3. Physical distance and medium. As you have discovered, increasing physical distance can effectively weaken signal strength. Additionally, you might experiment with objects that provide a sense of comfort or grounding, such as specific crystals or wood, as buffering mediums.
4.
Selective attention. Consciously training oneself to listen only to those plants that emit gentle signals, or to engage perception only when necessary. Akin to learning to ignore background noise and focus solely on desired channels. This requires formidable willpower. 5. Emotional management. Maintaining emotional stability and tranquility is paramount. When one is anxious or fatigued, resistance to negative signals significantly diminishes. Ensuring adequate sleep, a healthy diet, and moderate exercise is essential. These methods do not yield immediate results. Professor Gu gently reminded me, stressing that they require patience and persistence to practice and adapt. Nevertheless, they appear to be the safest and most feasible paths forward. He handed me several books on meditation and the fundamentals of neuroplasticity, along with a simple guided meditation CD. Start with the simplest breathing meditation, 10 minutes each day. When faced with strong signals, attempt deep breathing, envisioning yourself sinking into the earth, or using imagery that evokes safety and comfort, such as a sunlit forest or a tranquil lake, to shield against the impact. Take your time and do not rush. As I departed the research institute, I clutched the materials in my hands, feeling a newfound sense of assurance. Though the road ahead was long, I had at least discerned a direction and methodology. I was no longer a passive recipient swept along by my abilities. Chinyu remained quietly by my side, accompanying me home. How do you feel? He inquired during the drive. I feel hopeful, I replied softly, gazing at the trees whizzing past outside the window. Thank you, Chinyu. I refrained from expressing the words that lingered unspoken. Without his timely intervention in acquiring that begonia, without his introduction to Professor Gu, and without his unwavering support and silent encouragement, I might still be grappling with fear and confusion. No need to thank me, he replied, his gaze fixed ahead. The contours of his profile softened by the fleeting shadows outside the car window. You have helped Demolon, assisted Old Joe, and aided many others. This is what you deserve. He paused, his voice low and clear. Moreover, we are friends. Friends. The weight of that word, spoken from his lips, stirred a warm current within me, dispelling the remnants of lingering gloom. Yes, friends, I smiled. Time flowed quietly, like a gentle stream. I began a disciplined practice of meditation. At first, it was challenging. My thoughts raced, making it difficult to find stillness. Yet, with perseverance, I gradually began to experience that serene sense of focus on the self. I endeavored to establish psychological barriers, envisioning myself standing by a tranquil lake, enveloped by a soft, warm golden glow. When passing by plants exhibiting evident distress, feeling their faint negative emotions, I consciously sought refuge within this light, and indeed, the background noise receded into a distant murmur. Though I still could not entirely shield myself from intense pain signals such as encountering severely harmed plants again, I could at least anticipate them and employ Professor Gu's techniques to swiftly stabilize my state, minimizing harm. I no longer resisted my abilities but learned to coexist peacefully with them, mastering the art of listening while also knowing when to withdraw. The flower shop remained bustling and joyful. Under my deft touch, Fengxin Garden thrived, with Sister Zhang beaming with delight, rewarding me with a pay raise and promising a year-end bonus. Boss Joe's botanical garden flourished under my regular checkups, his precious plants vibrant and healthy. And he praised me to anyone who would listen, increasingly generous with my consulting fees. The nature of my friendship with Qin Yu subtly transformed through our daily interactions. He would bring me hot late-night snacks when I worked overtime, and I would prepare nourishing soup for him upon his return from business trips, leaving it at his doorstep. We would venture to flower markets on weekends or drive to the countryside in search of intriguing wild plants, of course, legal and environmentally friendly observations. He patiently listened to my anecdotes from the flower shop and my grievances about particularly fastidious customers. In return, I would lend an ear to his occasional business woes or the latest antics of his plant-obsessed friend, Old Joe. The balcony became a familiar rendezvous point for us. His orchid, under my remote guidance and his meticulous care, not only fully recovered but also bloomed with elegant, fragrant flowers last winter. After the petals fell, it produced new flower spikes, heralding the arrival of a new flowering season. The blue-purple begonia I had rescued, after struggling to develop a few frail new roots in its coarse soil, was carefully transplanted into a richer, more aerated medium. Its recovery was slow but resolute. The withered leaves gradually fell away, and the newly sprouted leaves, though small, shimmered with a deep, captivating blue-purple sheen, dotted with silver, reminiscent of stars that had survived a tempest. "Thank you, Xiaoman." Its voice became calm and filled with gratitude. Days flowed peacefully and meaningfully until one day, Sister Zhang mysteriously pulled me aside, lowering her voice. "Xiaoman, I need to discuss something with you." "What is it, Sister Zhang?" "I plan to return to my hometown." She sighed, her expression a blend of reluctance and relief. "My husband's health is not great, and our child will soon be taking the college entrance exams. They need someone to care for them. I intend to transfer the flower shop." I was taken aback. Although I knew Sister Zhang would eventually return, I did not expect it to happen so soon. Fengxing Garden held too many memories and turning points for me. Here, I found a stable job, encountered a benefactor like Sister Zhang, and truly began to accept and utilize my abilities. What will happen to the shop? I felt a pang of emptiness inside. Sister Zhang looked at me, her eyes suddenly bright. "Xiaoman, I have an idea. Why don't you take over the shop?"
Me?
I was astonished, Sister Zhang. I simply do not possess such a sum of money. Acquiring this prime location, with a store of this magnitude, not to mention the inventory, amounts to no trifling figure. Financial matters are easily resolved. Sister Zhang proclaimed with a grand gesture, "I trust you implicitly. I am confident in handing the shop over to you. Payments can be made in installments. Alternatively, we could consider your expertise as a form of equity. I can assume a hands-off role and merely enjoy the dividends. In any case, we cannot allow outsiders to benefit. What do you think?" My heart raced fervently at Sister Zhang's unwavering trust. To take over the fragrant garden? To possess a quaint flower shop entirely of my own? A sanctuary where I could peacefully engage with plants, utilizing my abilities to assist both flora and fellow plant enthusiasts? As this notion took root, it sprawled wildly through my mind like a vine, ensnaring my very soul. That evening, I sat upon the balcony, gazing at the city's shimmering lights, my emotions surging. The tendrils of my pothose brushed gently against my arm. "Xiaoman, let us open a shop. I shall be your prized asset." The bare paw succulent swayed its plump leaves, supportive. "The new store must have large windows. Let the sun shine in." The voice of the elegant orchid resonated with calm assurance. "It is an excellent idea, Xiaoman. You possess the capability." Even the blue-purple begonia whispered softly, "Go for it, Xiaoman." The encouragement from my plants fortified my resolve. I found myself in need of a partner, someone who could complement my deficiencies in management and financing. My gaze instinctively drifted towards the opposite balcony. Qin Yu stood there, watering his beloved orchid. The warm, dim light outlined his tall figure. He seemed to sense my gaze and lifted his head, meeting my eyes through the glass and the night. Our gazes intertwined in the air. In that moment, I distinctly perceived the warmth of understanding and silent support in his eyes. A few days later, a brand new, natural wood-colored sign graced the glass door of the fragrant garden. The name had changed to Xiaoman's plant language. The lettering was fresh and charming, accompanied by an illustration of a tender green leaf and a tiny, smiling flower. Inside, the space was bright and immaculate. Lush greenery flourished, and vibrant flowers bloomed abundantly. The layout had been adjusted for greater warmth and comfort, with a cozy reading nook established. Qin Yu and I stood together in the rejuvenated shop. He was my partner and investor, He insisted on investing, claiming a minor stake without interfering in operations. Sister Zhang, holding our signed contract and the first installment, beamed with delight. Wonderful. Now I can rest easy. Xiaoman, Mr. Qin, this shop is entrusted to you. Work diligently. After bidding a reluctant farewell to Sister Zhang, the shop was left with just Qinyu and me. Sunlight streamed through the pristine glass windows, filling the air with the refreshing scent of plants and a hint of floral fragrance. How does it feel, Boss Lin? Qinyu asked, his eyes twinkling with mirth. I surveyed our little oasis, though predominantly mine, observing the vibrant plants that seemed to smile at me, my heart swelling with an unprecedented sense of fulfillment and stability. I inhaled deeply, the air infused with the aroma of hope, akin to a dream. Yet it was a beautiful dream. Qinyu approached my side, and together we watched the bustling traffic outside. Let us ensure this dream continues. His voice resonated, deep and clear. I turned to face him. His profile appeared particularly gentle in the sunlight, and his deep-set eyes reflected my own image with clarity. In that moment, something within shifted subtly. No longer was it an indistinct fondness, nor merely a friendship. It was a seed nurtured together, finally breaking through the soil, stretching towards the sunlight, unfurling its first tender leaves. Qinyu, I whispered, my heart pounding vigorously in my chest. That orchid seems poised to bloom once more. He followed my gaze. The orchid, which we had painstakingly revived together, bore several delicate, pale green buds atop its newly sprouted flower stalk, shyly peeking forth, gathering strength for its impending bloom in the sunlight. A tender smile curved Qinyu's lips. Indeed, he replied softly, his gaze returning to my face, imbued with warmth. A new flowering season is upon us. The sunlight enveloped us warmly, and the shop was serene enough to hear the sound of leaves unfurling. The money tree in the corner mused leisurely. A new shop brings a fresh atmosphere. The pothos vine quietly reached towards a sunnier spot. How delightful. The blue-purple begonia, perched upon a new leaf, held a glistening drop of water that refracted the sunlight into a myriad of sparkling stars, resembling a tear of happiness. My heart, too, felt as though it was filled with the warmth of sunlight and the whispers of plants. The future, like the orchid poised to bloom, brimmed with infinite possibilities. And I knew, regardless of the duration of the flowering season or the storms to come, he would be by my side. Thus concludes the story. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing and liking to show your support. Until we meet again in the next tale.